Good evening, guys, and welcome to Generational Change on Saturday night. We'll see if this becomes a mainstay option for the channel. We'll see if it helps increase the number of subscribers as well as viewers. We're already off to a good start. And yes, Capeson, our channel has grown exponentially over the past couple of weeks. We cannot be more gratified with how things have turned in a very positive direction. Hopefully they will maintain. As you guys know, Jen will be back on Monday. I was hoping we were going to get to 30,000 subscribers as a lofty goal by the time that she returned. Turns out, I guess I was selling myself a little short. We have gotten ourselves up to 40,000 subscribers, closing in on 41,000 subscribers as we speak. So hopefully this will continue. We will obviously see how this ultimately takes off over time. But, you know, this evening, I've been meaning to try to organize, certainly with the extra day, guests that I think could be very important to hear from at a time where there is a lot of uncertainty going on in the country right now. I know as much as anybody, many people are scared, rightfully so. There have been many points in our history where things get a little dicey, to say the least. And, you know, this is certainly one of those circumstances where things have gotten exceptionally dicey. And for somebody who has served our country honorably and did so for a generation, including in the Vietnam War, and of course was the Deputy Chief of Staff to Secretary of State Colin Powell, there is somebody who I think we all very much respect and, in my case, revere very much. He has been a guest on our podcast multiple times before. We are so happy to have him back again, hopefully not for the last time, and many more to come. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, welcome back to Generational Change.
Good to be back with you.
How's everything?
I hope I can come back a few more times. I tell you what, I'm running out of steam.
I totally understand, and certainly you've seen a lot in your life, but you know we're very thankful for the insight that you provide, and I think it goes without saying that right now we've never. I mean, we have experienced this before, but I think when you think about what we went through, what you've gone through, obviously living through the Cold War, living through Vietnam, and obviously multiple wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. Iran, as we learned from General Clark when he was a guest on our podcast, that this has kind of been the crown jewel for the neocons in Washington for over 40 years, probably more than 45 years to be exact. ever since the Ayatollah took over in 1979. They, I guess, get the sense that they have an opportunity here to try to make good on that promise. The question is, what is the president going to do? Is he going to cave, or is he going to potentially have some type of, sort of come to Jesus moment and say, no, this is not the way we're going to go this time? How do you perceive the entire circumstance that we're living in right now as it relates to what's happening with this sort of saber rattling with Iran?
I think one has to back out of the present circumstances. They're being so badly handled by the mainstream media and others, and come up to what I call the strategic plane and see what's happening. Yes, it is a question of the neocons in particular wanting to overthrow the Ayatollah. They wanted to do that for a long time. But there's a long history here, of course. We overthrew the first democratically elected leader of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh, in 1953. So there's angst on both sides of this relationship, no question about it. But this is a huge effort by the American empire to stop the massive change of power that's occurring in the world. And the magnet for that change is China. And everything we're doing, from the Arctic down through the Baltic Sea, down through that war in Ukraine, which is really our war with Moscow using Ukraine as a proxy, and down to the Levant and to the Persian Gulf and Iran, is a part of the warp and woof of that. Because the latest development of the Base Road Initiative for China focuses on Iran. And we don't want that to succeed any more than we wanted that road, as it were, that was coming through the heart of Ukraine into Europe that China was building. Most people don't even know that the railroad there that they almost completed would reduce their Pacific port ship time from 2 to 2.5 days going through the Suez Canal or the Red Sea, whatever, to about 16 hours. Well, you've got the same thing, the same kind of potential for a trade route and massive improvement in using it for Chinese goods coming to the West, down around Iran, coming there. They just completed 2 or 3 of the first trips. We're trying to stop that. We're using everything we can in our arsenal, and all of our allies who are unsuspecting in a lot of this, I feel that's probably the case, to arrest this movement of power. Because we feel like if it happens, and this is what's truly flawed about this, we're done. We have to defeat China. But we don't want to do it in a war, because if we did it in a war, we'd be defeated. A straight up heads-on war with China, we'd lose, particularly now that they're allied with Russia. Just those 2 navies together would wipe us off the globe. I mean, our Navy's quite small. It's quite capable, but it's quite small. And look at what we're doing with all the arms. We wasted arms in the Red Sea. These things are not producible quickly. And they're going. Israel is shooting them all up. And the lies that are coming out of Israel right now, particularly out of Netanyahu's mouth, about how this war is going as it's going right now, are just covering their camouflage for all of this, because they're running out of missiles. They have to shoot 4 or 5 or 6 at every single one coming in, and they're running out of missiles. So, and Iran is not running out of missiles. So this war of rockets, if you will, of missiles, is going to shift slowly but surely over to favoring Iran rather than Israel. And that's when Netanyahu is going to demand that Trump come in. And that's your question. Will Trump come in? And
Well, I think it goes without saying, and I think this is something that, I mean, obviously there's a limit to how much you can share based on your intel that you're provided with and that you could share publicly. But are you able to share whether or not Netanyahu decided to do this on his own, or was this consulted with the president and ultimately there was some type of plan in place? I mean, honestly, from where I stand, I think Netanyahu is just a completely rogue leader at this point and kind of just assumed that, well, I'm going to do this and the U.S. will naturally come along with me.
I think you're right there but I think the circumstances were really kind of awkward. His government was about to fall. There was going to be a vote of no confidence in his government. And so that prompted him, I think, speedily to make the decision and go ahead and do it. Did he talk to Trump before he actually executed? I don't know. But I would not be surprised if he didn't. They had had enough conversations that Trump knew that at some point in time, Bibi was probably going to launch.
Well, I don't want you to have to just share your sentiments all by yourself. I have a little surprise for you this evening. We have a great friend of yours who we love having as a guest on our channel many a times before and many more times to come. Dennis Fritz, welcome back as always to Generational Change.
It's my honor and pleasure to be with you once again. And it's an added plus to be with my great friend, Larry Wilkerson.
Hey, how you doing there, dude?
All right. How about yourself? Happy belated Father's Day. I know we were both visiting our daughters.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'm about worn out. I really am. I'm about worn out. Yeah. And then today it came up to be 91 degrees. I'm out cutting grass in 91 degrees, not about passed out.
Yeah, I was out in it myself. Well, listen, I know you're ready to get started here, but I'm already, listen, I heard a comment that Larry was making just now, and I'm assuming it was what did Trump know in regards to maybe Bibi doing that attack?
I think it's without question from where I stand. I mean, again, you guys are privileged to more information than the average person is, but and there's obviously a limit to how high up the classified ladder this goes. I'm of the mindset that Netanyahu decided to. I'm not saying that he didn't have a conversation with Trump about attacking Iran. I have no doubt that conversation happened. But in terms of when it was going to occur and when he ultimately decided to move forward with this, I think there's a fairly reasonable assumption here that he just did it on his own terms and assumes that America is going to come right along with him.
Let me just say something. I always tell folks, you've heard me say it before, I can give you facts, assumptions, and opinions. And I got to tell you, I agree with your assumption. I'm sure we've talked about this before. I wrote a book, Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why We Invaded Iraq. Something I put in there about the neocons and others that have been pushing us into these wars for decades. And one of the things they do, and part of their play plan, they talked about this openly in the past, is that to undermine a current president. And I think, and I feel real confident in saying this, though it's an assumption, that there were people working with Bibi that knew he was going to do this, and he got the green light from them. And I got to be honest, I don't think Trump knew. And now Trump is playing the game now, so he won't look bad. Now, that's an assumption, but I can give you a fact that part of the neocons playbook is to undermine any current president like they did with President Bush, if you will. As Larry will know, during the second Iraq war, between Dick Cheney's office and the Department of Defense, they were blindsiding, in fact, quite frankly, the State Department and President Bush and pushing him into the war, and they were undermining him in certain circumstances. One example we talk about now, we got this disagreement going between Tulsi and Gabbard saying, hey, they were not making a nuclear bomb. That's the intel. You had Rumsfeld back in the day saying, hey, I have intel that the generals don't have, and we know. I remember him saying an ape would know that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. Well, guess what? He didn't. And guess who Rumsfeld intel was? A guy by the name of Curveball, who was discredited by the German intel, which Larry know more about. And so I feel overly confident that Trump didn't know, but there were certain people that knew that are undermining him.
Yeah. Colonel, I'm going to take you back a visit to your late friend and somebody who you hold in high esteem, as do a lot of other people, especially anyone who served in the military. General Powell obviously was in a very tough spot. Lord knows to what extent he knew ahead of time. But if we can take a step back in time, and I remember it very well, even as a young college student, I can remember looking around just thinking there's no sense around this idea that we have to invade Iraq. This makes no sense. And I think that that was a sentiment that was felt by a lot of people. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the country, I think, was feeling that way. I think the overwhelming majority of the country wanted to get bin Laden, obviously. But I think as it relates to what ultimately ended up happening, it was very difficult to sell this idea that the way to get bin Laden is to invade Iraq until this happened.
Anything that we know, but what I can share with you, when combined with what all of us have learned over the years, is deeply troubling. What you will see is an accumulation of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior. The facts in Iraq's behavior demonstrate that Saddam Hussein and his regime have made no effort to disarm as required by the international community. Indeed, the facts in Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction. None of this should come as a surprise to any of us. Terrorism has been a tool used by Saddam for decades. Saddam was a supporter of terrorism long before these terrorist networks had a name. And this support continues. The nexus of poisons and terror is new. The nexus of Iraq and terror is old. The combination is lethal. With this track record, Iraqi denials of supporting terrorism take their place alongside the other Iraqi denials of weapons of mass destruction. It is all a web of lies. When we confront a regime that harbors ambitions for regional domination, hides weapons of mass destruction, and provides haven and active support for terrorists, we are not confronting the past. We are confronting the present. And unless we act, we are confronting an even more frightening future.
I think, as I just mentioned, and obviously would like to hear your thoughts, I do think that his level of credibility and respect is what swayed millions of Americans' opinions about whether or not going to war or invading Iraq in the spring of 2003 was something that, up until then, was not something that anybody wanted to do. And we're going to transition this into the conversation about Tulsi in a minute. But I am curious if, from where you stood, and obviously a lot changed over the course of time when that statement was made, I think you would like to believe over the last 20 plus years that a lot of people have learned a little bit more of the so-called playbook that is put in front of us, whether we have knowledge of it ahead of time or not. But I think that a lot of that playbook that was employed 23 years ago, they're attempting to employ it again now with Iran. Only now, Iran is a completely different animal. And I think when you think about all the people that had served in Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, they're looking at this now just saying, this is sort of the same thing all over again. Would you agree that that there is a lot of similarities in terms of the MO that is being employed right now by the Trump administration?
Yes, and it doesn't seem to register, at least it's not registering in a powerful way with a lot of the American people. That said, the polls now show all across the political spectrum, 60% plus of Americans are not for this war. I would dare say that was probably similar in the time of the invasion of Iraq, and then Powell went on. And one of the things that I found out immediately following his presentation was that he had made a major impact on the polls in America, and I suspect internationally too. And it took me back to the moment when he came in and charged me to get him ready for it, 7 days and 7 nights out at the CIA, and 1 day and night in New York. He said, when I asked him, why? What do you mean, why? He said, I said, why you? John Negroponte's our ambassador in New York. Adlai Stevenson was sufficient for the Cuban Missile Crisis. Why you? And he looked at me and he said, you need to ask me that. And I knew exactly what he meant. He had poll ratings that were the equivalent of Mother Teresa's. He was constantly 78, 79, 80% in the polls favorable. That they used him. And when we had finished and the pillars of his presentation began to collapse one by one as we went through that summer, The last one, I think it was George Tenet who called him, maybe John McLaughlin, his deputy, and told him that the mobile biological labs had finally been taken off the CIA website because they were fake too. He was angry. He was not a happy camper. He knew he'd been used. And I've since, through a lot of good students, figured out how he was used in great detail. The vice president went to the CIA 11 times, a whole litany of things that happened that he knew nothing about. And I knew nothing about. We only were exposed to a couple of analysts. We should have suspected something when that happened. We weren't exposed to those analysts in the CIA who did not believe that Saddam had nuclear weapons or was working on them, and so on. Let me fast forward, though, and say that this is so much deja vu all over again, if you will. We are looking at the same roadmap, the same type of development of false intelligence. And Tulsi Gabbard's testimony in March, and then the reversal of it, if you will, by Trump at the plane door, is a perfect example of it. I don't care about any intelligence coming from the 17 entities of the intelligence community. What I care about is what I know, and what I know comes from Bibi, and it comes from those billionaires behind me, those neocon billionaires, those technocratic billionaires behind me, that, including Miriam Adelson, that want this war. So we are a little bit different sheet of music, but we're doing the same thing. And again, I go back to what I said originally. We're doing it because we are so scared of China. We want to check her everywhere she creates a new alliance, everywhere she puts a new base road initiative, if you will, and everywhere that looks like it might develop in a way that will be contrary to our economic and trade interests. And this is the last place. It coincides with the clean break strategy, which was the last place, not for fighting China, but for the neocons who wanted a clean sweep in that region of the world for Israel. And Dennis is absolutely right. You can lay at the feet of Israel 75% of the crimes the United States has perpetrated since 9/11. Before too, but we had presidents before that would check Israel. H.W. Bush checked them. Ronald Reagan checked them. Not since 9/11. No one checks Israel at all. And I will tell you, when Ariel Sharon went into the Oval Office, who was then the prime minister, not much better than Netanyahu, and was told by George W. Bush that the peace process had failed, that the roadmap was dead, that Powell's work was really not being successful, over to you, that started it big time. Because what he told Sharon was taken by Netanyahu and executed. They've been doing it ever since. We think he's killing people in Gaza now, great numbers, of course, and he's using Iran as cover for that. But he was killing people in Gaza before. He was killing people in the West Bank before. The October 7th attack by Hamas just gave him an excuse to expand it majorly. And now he's hiding all the killing underneath the Iran crisis.
Well, you brought up a great point. You know, we always try to point out on our channel that prior to October 7th, there were 700 Palestinians that were mass murdered by Israel in the year 2023, just before. Yes. And the whole propaganda machine that Israel has perpetuated on our culture stretches back to Iraq, 9/11, the Cold War. This has been going on forever. And so much of what has transpired post-World War II that has, on the one hand, enriched this country in exponential ways, at the same time, has made us in many ways potentially a pariah because of the fact that we have attached ourselves to the creation of Israel, which obviously was in place as soon as everything was decided post, I'm forgetting the name of the meeting right now, but the meeting that took place after the war between, obviously, the United States, England, and the Soviet Union, and determining how we're going to basically break up, the rest of the world, because this is like 1984 come to life.
Yeah, and the Israelis were maximal terrorists against the British.
Oh, yeah.
They killed them.
Remember the King David Hotel
that
they blew up? And that's what kicked the Brits out. A terrorist attack on the King David Hotel.
The one thing that I think is happening now that wasn't happening 23 years ago is I think that the American people, remember, Lincoln's greatest saying, in my opinion, was you can fool some of the people all the time. You can fool all the people some of the time. You cannot fool all the people all of the time. And they are attempting to fool the people again with the state of Israel, that now a lot of people are looking at and saying, wow, maybe this proxy state really is akin to all of the bad things that we've been doing at home and abroad for generations. So the one thing I think will come of this, regardless of how it ends, is I think the state of Israel and the Israel lobby to a greater extent is on its way out in this country, which is why they have gone to such lengths and are spending such incredible amounts of money to manipulate our electoral process and influence our domestic and foreign policy. As a result, I think they've become way too exposed now. And way too many people are aware of their actions, what AIPAC does and all of these other nonprofits, if you will, which is why when Tulsi makes this statement back in March, and then she's going to flip on it, it goes to show you that it isn't really a question of whether she believes what she's saying. It's she's being told to say something different. So here's what Tulsi said. And like I said, this is in so many ways a carbon copy, not exactly, but it rhymes, as they say, with what General Powell did back in 2002.
Iran continues to seek expansion of its influence in the Middle East, despite the degradation to its proxies and defenses during the Gaza conflict. Iran has developed and maintains ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs, including systems capable of striking U.S. targets and allies in the region. Tehran has shown a willingness to use these weapons, including during a 2020 attack on U.S. forces in Iraq and in attacks against Israel in April and October 2024. Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
Well, I would say that that's a pretty definitive statement, gentlemen. What do you think?
I think it's a definitive statement, and I'll tell you why. Because I know that they are enriching very, very, what I would call a threshold nuclear program. They've enriched to the point where it's a very short distance to enrichment that would be suitable for a bomb. But that's not all there is to it. You have got to fashion a warhead. You've got to create the warhead that will withstand reentry heats and temperatures. You've got to match that warhead with a missile. You've got to match that and test it. I went through this with North Korea. The first North Korean test, we didn't even detect. The Seismic Center in Geneva warned us that there'd been an event, so we were able to put the sniffers in the air and everything. And the second one we were able to detect. But I don't think she's wrong. I think they have not decided that this other stage or stages that is very time intensive and really takes some hard work had happened yet. So you're looking at maybe 2 to 3 years before that highly enriched uranium really could go into something that would work. And she got reversed. And as I understand it now, they have put Will Ruger in charge at the DNI, Charles Koch employee, mind you, for a number of years beforehand. I know Will. And his job is to make sure nothing gets up to Tulsi that she can't, handle. In other words, nothing like this is going to get up to her again.
The one thing I will say in General Powell's defense is I was a young kid at the time, but I do remember 1995, 1996. They wanted somebody to run against me for president of the United States on the Republican side. And if I had to deal with General Powell, I might have had a lot of problems. But of course, he decided not to run in 96 against Clinton. And of course,
what a different world it would be had he run.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I'll tell you one thing. If General Powell was president of the United States, there never would have been a repeal of Glass-Steagall. That much I feel pretty confident in saying.
I can tell you that for a fact, and I don't think 9/11 would have happened.
You know what? The problem that I think a lot of people don't understand, and we've talked about this at length, the three of us have talked about this at length. You know, when the people that are representative today, like Pompeo was and Bolton was, and then of course you had Wolfowitz and Rumsfeld, and of course Cheney, the
Richard
bureaucrats. Yeah, you have the bureaucrats that, especially the ones that have never served in combat, are always the most dangerous people in politics, and especially the Zionist movement, the ones that are so ready, willing, and able to throw everyone else under the bus for their so-called cause. Now, where Tulsi comes into play, and Dennis, I'm sure you have an opinion or two about this. You know, here's somebody who, again, is sort of the modern day version of General Powell. You know, she's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. She serves in the medics division. She is actually the person who goes into the line of fire and has to help people that are injured on the battlefield. I mean, she is a real woman of honor in that respect. And there is a certain amount of gravitas that comes with that a bureaucrat who sits on the high horse in DC can't possibly sell. But if she's coming out there and is making any type of a statement, there is a certain level of credibility that comes with that, but that also leads to a lot more of a dangerous situation of believing false pretenses. Tell me I'm wrong about that.
Well, let me mention that, and I want to digress on a couple of points too. But let me just mention, Tulsi is no Colin Powell, okay? But let me just say this. Her credibility preceded her because of the fact, early on, I used to be a fan of hers because of the fact she was against warmongers and the neocons, and she spoke out publicly against them and these continuous wars. She was against them. Now, let me mention about Colin Powell and digress a minute, and we'll go back to her in a moment. When Larry had mentioned, you know, Colin said, hey, why? Why me? What you must understand is at the time, Colin Powell, as far as a cabinet member in the administration, was the most credible person in that administration. And that's why they sent him to do that. Secondly, I don't want to speak for Larry, but one of the things that got Larry and I together, we jumped on this crusade. Larry spent a lot of time over at the CIA prepping over there for Colin Powell. Colin Powell left this earth saying that was the biggest stain on his career and credibility. And Larry, as his chief of staff, you know, they had to pay him because he was over there prepping him and trying to make sure that Colin Powell was not giving any bad information. In fact, Larry tried to resist a lot. But what was going on there, once again, is that from my perspective and what I saw in the Pentagon, from what I would call, we had the Pentagon Papers, and now I'll call the Iraq Papers, which I was a part of, is that you had, a lot of you heard about the Special Intelligence Cell at the Pentagon. Well, I worked around some of those guys, and they were feeding information and overriding the CIA. They were on loan from the DIA. Some of them reluctant, but some of the two individuals I know, they jumped on this to be a part of this. And so Powell was set up, went to his grave, felt that was a stain on his career. Now, with that said, though, Tulsi Gabbard, she brings some credibility because of what I said earlier. She was against these type of things. But now the pressure is being put on her. Now, her way out, I looked at her response when she came out and said, hey, the media is trying to separate the president and myself. And in her comments, where she'll be able to go back and say, she said, hey, look, I am not no different from the president. I know right now, though they're not building one, but her words were, they are at the point where they can produce one. Well, okay, that may be true, but they're not producing one. And let me I want to digress one more time, something that you said earlier, Peter, because I usually close my presentations by saying this, but since you brought something earlier that relates to this, the same playbook is happening again. That's why I got on this crusade to stop this playbook. And I've been ending a lot of my presentations by saying, fool us once, government, WMD, Iraq, shame on you, government. Fool us again, Iran, nuclear weapons, shame on us. Because the playbook is being replayed.
Or just quote Dick Cheney. I can quote him verbatim. We know with absolute certainty that Saddam Hussein has a nuclear weapon.
And how about Rumsfeld? A
Yeah.
trained ape. A
Yeah.
trained ape know that they have WMD. Flat
Yeah.
out lies. And now let me just say this. And once again, Trump knows better than his intel folks. I doubt it.
One thing I will never forget about Rumsfeld is the statement he made on September 10th, 2001, about the money that can't be accounted for at the Pentagon.
Right.
Just a little bit of inconvenience. We'll finish this up.
The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. Iran will likely continue efforts to counter Israel and press for U.S. military withdrawal from the region by aiding, arming, and helping to reconstitute its loose consortium of like-minded terrorists and militant actors, which it refers to as its axis of resistance. Although weakened, this collection of actors still presents a wide range of threats, including to Israel's population, U.S. forces deployed in Iraq and Syria, and to U.S. and international military and commercial shipping and transit.
Now, that statement's all well and good, but then Tulsi decides to give a response tweet because the Donald has something to say that I don't really care what she has to say. I totally understand everything and you understand nothing. So, I'm a really stable genius, keep in mind. But so Tulsi, rather than push back against the dear leader, if you will, decided to issue this statement. The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months. If they decide to finalize the assembly, President Trump has been clear that it can't happen, and I agree. Okay, so let's just for a moment say that that is all true. Why are we in a situation right now where we would even have to think about this? Could it be because an unprovoked attack on Tehran, on civilian populations within Iran, was perpetuated by Israel at the hand of a genocidal madman in Netanyahu? I would think that would be enough grounds for Iran to figure that, hey, you know what? We need to protect ourselves. I don't see anything wrong with that. What do you guys think?
Well, I can tell you right now that from the reports I'm receiving from Israel, and Netanyahu is trying desperately, I mean desperately, to keep these reports from coming out. Israel's being pounded. They're being pounded right now. And they're using up their weaponry, our weaponry, which is kind of dangerous for us. They're firing 4, 5, 6 missiles at every single missile that Iran sends in. And Iran was smart. They sent in the first missiles as more or less decoys. And they saturated the Israeli air defenses, which include ours, cruisers in the Mediterranean and other things that we're giving them. They saturated them and they fired all their missiles, and they continue to fire their missiles. Iran is not running out. Now they're using even more competent missiles, even better missiles. They used one just yesterday that's not too much different from the Oreshnik that Putin used. It's a hypervelocity missile. It cannot be shot down by any air defense system. It'd be an accident if you shot it down. It's so fast. So he's hiding all this. He's also hiding the fact that a lot of Israelis who have the money are going to the coast and getting a yacht or a small craft and unassing the country. They're leaving because he's forbidden them to leave. This is not going all that well for Israel. And that's another pressure I'm worried about, because if it gets to the point where Bibi tells Trump, we're going to collapse, he doesn't have any choice. He thinks he's going to go in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
Well, I believe, and Dennis, please, but I do believe that, I mean, a lot of times presidents throughout history, it doesn't happen very often, but there are times where a commander-in-chief really holds all the cards. Trump has the ability to make a couple of moves here that can basically completely decimate or outright destroy the state of Israel, and with it, the Israel lobby and their stranglehold over our country. I don't know if he has it in him. I mean, granted, I think he would probably be lined up as a martyr in many ways if he did, because I think they would come after him with everything they've got. But things are getting very precarious right now with the state of Israel, especially with the lockdown, refusing to allow their citizenry to leave. That's a sign of what was essentially happening and has been happening to the Palestinians. Oh, now the Israelis are probably looking at a similar fate if they're not careful, because Iran is not going to let up. They've had enough. It's pretty obvious that they've had enough.
Peter, I will tell you, if you look back, I've been saying for over a year, I'm on record of saying this, that if Israel decided to attack Iran, they will regret it. Why? Because Iran have, as we all know, ballistic missiles, powerful ballistic missiles, and very accurate ballistic missiles. And every time they said they would retaliate, they did. Think about Soleimani. When we assassinated him, they said they would retaliate. And they did, on basis where we had troops in Iraq. When Israel first attacked, they retaliated. And so I knew they would retaliate again, this time more forceful. And guess what? As Larry mentioned, they're being hit more than what is being said. And in fact, the Israelis are restricting what the media can see. The only reason they showed the hospital because they want sympathy, discounting all the hospitals they bombed in Gaza. But now they want sympathy from us, in the world. Oh, they hit a hospital, which really, from what I'm told, it was just an offshoot because it was going after military targets near the hospital. Let me just mention one other thing as well. How did we get here? Which Larry knows because he played some role in this. We had something called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, which was working. Iran was abiding by. Guess what? We broke that, President Trump. They were limited in the amount of enrichment. They were abiding by it. Now, have they upped the ante and increased that enrichment? Yes, but think about it too. They want leverage as well to bring us back to the table. So I think a lot of it, we got to think about that too politically. They were probably looking for leverage. Okay, if we increase it to this point, but I've never heard anybody, there may be some hardliners in Iran, but I never had the leadership say, hey, we want a nuclear weapon. They've been saying they don't want it. The Ayatollah, the last word, has said, we want no nuclear weapon. It's all for peaceful means. And so now, why do I tell you all that, Peter? None of this. WMD is not, Iraq was not about WMD. Nuclear weapons, not about nuclear weapons. It is about control, imperialistic opportunities to control the Middle East on behalf of Israel and probably on behalf of us, as Larry would say, because he seems to think, and he got me somewhat convinced, we are the drivers of this. Well, if we're not the drivers, we're absolutely complicit.
And here's the kicker, I think, now that we all be worried about. We can talk all day long about Tulsi and Trump, and we're looking at a situation where it could become near existential for Israel's survival as a state. That means Trump is going in. And that means we wind up ultimately, because bombing's not going to do it. You don't bomb a country as big as Iran with 90,000 people and do anything but make them
90 million.
Make them angry, make them ready to fight you, and start hitting your facilities in Bahrain, at Al Qadid in Saudi Arabia, all over the map. Al Udeid in
Iraq.
Yeah, Iraq. And then the poles will shift in America. The poles will shift, and they'll be killing U.S. people. So the poles will shift, and we're in this war. And I'm telling you, if you didn't like Iraq,
wow,
you will hate Iran, because
Peter,
it'll be trillions of dollars. We'll have to go to a draft because you're not going to get rid of them unless you invade.
I've been saying it, Colonel. I've been saying it. People think it's not serious. I'm telling you, if there is any inkling that Trump is going to blink and he's going to give in, there's going to be a draft in this country. It's going to happen. because there will be no way. I'll tell you the first thing that's going to happen, and it'll happen within the first few months. We all know what it was like. I mean, I went to Rutgers. I saw the ROTC out in full force when I was there leading up to the invasion and obviously post the invasion. There will be such an intense recruitment to get people into the military. There will be promises, financial promises. And Dennis, you're in Maryland. They are going to go into the toughest neighborhoods in Baltimore and Towson and places like that. And they are going to try to bring people in the most dire of circumstances and say, hey, you want out of this poverty? Come join the military. We'll get you out of here.
Peter, let me comment on that. That may have worked on me. You know, I'll be honest. I didn't join the military out of patriotism. I joined the military based on what you just said.
Necessity.
Now let me tell you this now. The young people of today are more critical thinking. I watch social media. As I tell folks, I don't know how to post, but I'm a TikTok nut. And all the young folks are on TikTok right now putting out, hey, I'm not going. They're putting jokes. I'm not going to fight your war. They're a lot smarter than we are. They're not we were more obliging. We listened to our parents that joined the military. You know, it's out of patriotism. You know, these young folks, I'm telling you, thought when people so-called run into Canada to avoid the draft, these young folks are telling you right now, just get out there on TikTok. We are not going. We are not going. And they're telling us that. And guess what? People like myself and Larry, I'm telling you right now, I came from a military family. Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, now Fort Bragg. And my dad retired from the Army. I went into the Air Force, spent 28 years. I would not tell anybody to join. Absolutely not, because we've been used as pawns in these foreign policies. Now, you start talking about a draft where, in my opinion, that may be a good thing, because that may stop everything. Because of the fact, I'm telling you right now, these kids are not going to go. Their parents not going to let them go. And I'm going to tell them, I'm going to be out there saying, you shouldn't go, because this is not about the security of our nation. Absolutely not.
That new leader up there in Canada will have 1 million new citizens, 18 to 24 years old, male and female.
You take that to the bank, Peter. I've been watching and talking to the young folks.
Ban on Israelis flying out raises legal red flags, with many needing to leave. And this is from the Times of Israel. This isn't from some, progressive liberal rag. This is from inside the heart of it all. Watchdog group says cabinet resolution establishing exceptions. Committee to grant some citizens permission to depart may violate constitutional right. Well, gee, gentlemen, I wonder who is going to be granted leave from the state of Israel. Could it be the very wealthy people that will just bribe the government so they can end up in, Miami or something like that? Because that's generally how this works. Broad government restrictions against flying out of the country in the wake of Israel's attack against Iran. Just that first sentence alone, in lieu of they attacking another country, you can't now leave. Not the, hey, we were unprovoked and attacked. Oh, we can't go anywhere now. No, that's not how this works. So the attack on Iran last Friday, facing tough legal questions as apparently large numbers of Israeli citizens. It's okay when you're committing genocide on the Palestinian people. When the boomerang comes back in your direction, it isn't so pretty. A cosmopolitan nation like Israel, they don't stand any chance of doing anything. It's all the dirty work that supposedly we're going to do on their behalf. But thankfully, the nation's waking up to that reality. And so, of course, seeking to leave the country for various reasons, there's only one reason they're trying to leave, are currently being prevented from doing so. Although small numbers of foreign citizens and Israelis have been able to leave through sea and land borders, Israeli citizens have not been able to buy plane tickets out of Israel, apparently due to concerns for aviation security during the ongoing conflict with Iran. One private attorney who is preparing a petition to the High Court of Justice has received requests for help from dozens of Israelis who need to leave the country for a variety of reasons, including some who simply live abroad. like, of course, with their families, but have been stranded in Israel since the beginning of Operation Rising Lion, more like Operation Cowardly Lion, against Iran. Meanwhile, the Movement for Quality Government has demanded that the government explain a cabinet resolution it passed on Wednesday conditioning flying out of the country on approval by a government-led exceptions committee. This is a very dire situation, gentlemen, and I don't know what Netanyahu hopes to accomplish, but I'm also of the mind, as I'm sure you both are, that he's not even in Israel right now. He's running this from afar and having all of his lapdogs like Gavir and Smotrich do his bidding because they're all nuts. How do you see this unfolding? How are they going to be able to prevent the people from leaving when Tel Aviv is getting absolutely bombarded at this point?
I actually heard him say today, and it made my blood curdle. He said, with some emotion, which he can manufacture at the drop of a pen, they're killing civilians. They're killing civilians, referring to Iran. I couldn't believe I was hearing it, but it's him. It's him. That's the sort of thing he does. They've been
even better. How about him complaining about the fact that he was supposed to be going to Miami for his son's wedding? We've got to postpone the wedding, and that's terrible. We don't.
Why is his son in Miami? As you talked about before, Peter. Why is his son in Miami?
Because it's
he doesn't get killed.
Oh my God! Let me tell you, that's one of the reasons why Wasserman Schultz is still in Congress, because she has a tremendous amount of support from the Israel adjacent network that resides in Southeast Florida, particularly in the Fort Lauderdale and Miami areas. That's where they are. And that's where a lot of them have relocated to, including to where Jen lives. They're, as she likes to point out, they're all in her Pilates classes now. They're all showing up. This is honestly, this is just another version of Cuba. That's all.
Peter, we all know now that Bibi Netanyahu cares nothing about anyone, almost like Trump, but himself. So you think about this, for a moment. For all the destruction that's happening in Israel right now, the only time you saw him out, as I alluded again, when you talk about, they're killing civilians, when he went to that hospital. He knows how to do disinformation. They're killing civilians, forgetting that he killed so many civilians in Gaza, as Larry mentioned. They're destroying hospitals. Where does he show up at? At that particular hospital. And so he can care less about his people. And I'm being quite serious about that, because we know that now. It's all about him now and his survivability.
Great. Well, the watchdog group said the resolution was especially problematic in light of the explicit constitutional right to leave and enter the country laid down in basic law, human dignity and freedom, as well as previous high court rulings determine the right to be fundamental in a democratic country. Transportation Minister Miri Regev said Thursday night that Israel was preparing to operate outgoing departure flights starting Monday to help. Can you imagine what that airport in Tel Aviv is going to be like on Monday? To help tourists, diplomats, and Israelis leave the country subject to the approval of the exceptions committee. Now, I could tell you guys, and we have seen this before, and we know how this is going to go down. Whoever is bribing the most are the ones who are going to leave first and are likely going to be able to get out.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to go. So basically, if you want a plane ticket out of Tel Aviv, whether it's to Athens or anywhere else, you are going to pay a lot of money in order to get out. I've lived in South Florida for a decade, and I can tell you both that when a couple of hurricanes came through the area, including, I forget the name of the one from 2017, you want to talk about price surging? I mean, a normal plane ticket that would have been $200 to get out of South Florida, to get up to New Jersey, where I happen to be from, $2,000 is what they were charging. I mean, they're going to do the same thing in Israel. They're going to basically force people to give up the nest egg, so to speak. Because in many ways, though, I feel like Israel is a spiraling tornado, and Netanyahu has brought them to this point, all for the purpose of essentially staying out of prison. I mean, I know it doesn't register with most people that somebody could be that much of a narcissistic sociopath that they would do that. But I feel that Bibi is that person. Do you agree?
Larry?
I can't even put adjectives to Bibi Netanyahu. He's the most despicable, maniacal, genocidal. Any term you want to come up with that is a derogative is inadequate to describe him. He's a beast. He's not human. And the things he's doing to Israel, and the fact, I think it was the Harvard poll that said 82% of the Jewish citizens of Israel, there's about 7 million Jewish citizens, about 7 million Palestinians or Arabs. And of the Jewish citizens, I think it's down to 6 million now because about 1 million have left. 82% of them agreed with what he's doing. So we're not talking about just a heinous leader. We're talking about a people who are watching Gaza and the West Bank unfold before their eyes and cheering.
Oh, yeah. And not only are they cheering it, but Jen has pointed out that for quite some time, especially since Netanyahu has put two men who I think are just as psychopathic, if not even more so than he is,
Absolutely.
with Smotrich and Gvir, these men are prepared to kill everybody. Like, they are prepared to kill everybody. And that is a very dangerous place to be in. But that also makes one ask themselves, we never thought, I think that was always the greatest fear. I think everybody knew that this country was heading for a major change. And that's essentially why Trump became president. But of course, the greatest fear about Trump being president is you're having somebody as the commander in chief with no elected experience, with no interest in really running a government. What's going to happen when a commander in chief like Trump is faced with a real international crisis? And this is the biggest international crisis of them all. Because if there is a nation that is prepared to drop a nuclear weapon, it is without question Israel. We showed the clip the other day of the IDF putting out a video about the effects of a nuclear bomb, as if to suggest that this is what Iran is doing. No, they put out that video to basically say, we've got them and we will use them if we have to. That to me is, that should have scared the living daylights out of everybody. And I don't want to be in a position where I feel like we have to be hoping and praying that Trump does the right thing. But we're kind of stuck in this. We're stuck. We're just stuck hoping that he does the right thing. But I do believe that if he doesn't give in, that the Israel lobby is going to break, because they're never going to be able to sell their narrative ever again if we don't come to their aid in lieu of what Iran is doing right now. I hope that that's what happens, but I'm not holding my breath, because if we get involved, you've already got Putin that has said that Russia will back Iran fully. Pakistan has said that they will back Iran fully. Do they realize what we're walking into here? This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is not Libya. This is not Syria. This is not Lebanon. This is not Somalia. This is potentially World War end times type stuff. Very serious. And I just feel like we're screaming into the ether, and I don't know who the hell with positions of power are actually listening right now. And that's my greatest concern. Who that can actually make a difference is listening right now. That's my fear.
Well, you could have said the same thing right after the Archduke was assassinated in Sarajevo in 1914.
1914.
And as Barbara Tuchman so adequately called it, the march to folly started anyway. And I see those kind of dominoes kind of poised to start falling in this situation. It's just so ripe for that, because Israel may become existentially threatened, or think it is. Both are the same thing, really, if you think about it for a moment. And then the United States is going to go in. And if we go in, it's a different conflict, totally different conflict, as you've pointed out. Just as it was a totally different conflict when we started the ball rolling for World War I. Now they had automatic mobilization tables and other things like that that helped them do this. But the march to folly is the march to folly. And that's what it looks like.
Hey, guys, let me interrupt just one moment. I keep my television on like I'm in a war room, and I'm seeing some breaking news. I can't confirm it or not, but they're saying, Trump, we have just completed our successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran. So that's blaring on my television right now on CNN.
Roland,
So
is this the tweet? Is that what you want? Is that what that truth? So you want to pull it up? All right. Well, listen, this is a very important moment here, so I'm going to break it to everybody. We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Estifan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs, beautiful bombs, was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace.
Get out of here.
Thank you for your attention to this, Matt. What is this, like an emergency broadcast system message that he's putting out there?
Let me make a prediction here now, because I know something about these weapon systems, and I'm sure Dennis does too. This is going to be the same thing as with the Houthis, al-Ansar. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're going to bounce a little rubble, and because at that particular site, the meter depth is in excess of the type bomb that the B-2 would drop can penetrate. So when they clean everything up and open the doors again, it'll still be there. Now, will Trump admit to that? Will we admit to that? Who knows? But it'll still be there, just as we did with the Houthis. You know, we fought the Houthis to a standstill. We defeated them. Yeah, right. Right.
Well, there's 2 key things there. First of all, if they use the bombs they say they were going to use, this is the first time they've actually been used operationally. They've been tested before in the past. And so we don't know if they're going to work. And as Larry alluded to, we don't know how deep, they can actually truly, penetrate in that facility that's in mountains. So that's number one. Number 2.
We do know the meter depth that they're designed to penetrate, and we do know the meter depth that Fordow is at. And it's very much in excess of the meter depth that they're supposed to be able to penetrate.
Well said. Exactly. The second thing, well, now we've been trying to figure out, are we involved? Well, now we're involved.
Oh, we're involved.
Oh, yeah.
We're involved now. We know it for a fact now. So now, all I can tell you, all bets are off. And Peter, something I was going to mention earlier when you were talking about, listen to me good, when you mentioned about, where we could be headed. Putin is on record to say he offered help. The Iranians say, hey, we don't want the help. Others in that region that are allied to Iran said, hey, this is our battle right now. We'll call you when we're ready. There are folks standing by. Even Hezbollah has come online. People said, oh, Hezbollah, they're no longer strong. They can't participate. They have come online and said, hey, when Iranians, when the leadership tell us jump in, they're going to jump in. And I'm telling you now, I'll be up all night now because they will respond to this because now we have involved ourselves in it now officially.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, from your perspective, I know this is obvious, this just happened in the last 15 minutes, but from where you stand, based on what he's suggesting, how devastating of an attack is this, or is this more surface level to make it seem like we really did some devastating work here? How would you perceive it?
Well, first thing is, I read up yesterday on both the type of bombs. I suspect the type of bomb we used was, as Dennis said, the penetrator and not the above ground airburst. I think we're probably going to, this is just speculation. I think we're based on what we did with Yemen. I think we're going to announce that it was really fantastic, just like you're seeing there in that release. We're going to have to wait and see what the Iranians say to really get a BDA, a bomb damage assessment. And I don't think the Iranians will be, I don't think they'll confuse it. I think they'll probably present it either way. If it did do damage, which I doubt very seriously, maybe they can't get into it for a while, but they can dig it out. But if it did that, they'll say that. They'll say that. If it didn't do anything, they'll say that too. They won't brag about it. They'll just say, well, we brushed the rock away and we're back inside again. Or they might say, as the IAEA has confirmed about Natanz, we have radioactivity all over the place. and we've got to do something about it. That could be a result also. The other possibility is that Iran will make its decision, and it'll make its decision that the United States is in the war, and by God, they're going to attack. That's the worst possible thing that could happen, because we have a lot of boys and girls over there who are in places like Bahrain and Qatar who are more or less defensive.
They could be sitting ducks. They could be sitting ducks.
They're not combat troops. They're mostly support troops. And
right.
I understand at Al Udeid, other than the aircraft that are actually there, there's no air defenses.
I was just going to say that, Larry. That's the thing. They don't have the air defenses that Israel have above them, and we see that Iran is getting through. And so they're sitting ducks, and you're talking about approximately, 40,000. I don't know the numbers. That's what I've heard.
It's about 50,000, I think.
Yeah.
Counting the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Yeah.
And so guess what? Iran has a right to defend themselves.
Oh, they do. And honestly,
we've also got that huge reception and ongoing facility in Kuwait. I mean, there's scattered troops all over the place, and they're all non-combat.
And they're closer to Iran than Israel.
Yes.
Do you see a situation where Iran retaliates by attacking one of our bases?
As I said, if they think this is the United States entering the fray, and that's what they're up against now is a combination of both Israel and the United States, then there's a possibility. There is a possibility.
Hey, Peter, as I've said before, I can give you assumption, facts, and opinions. I can give you a fact. They've responded in the past after the assassination of Soleimani.
Yes.
And so do they have the capability? Yes. My assumption, I think they will eventually attack.
And people forget two things I would bring up. One is right after the revolution, they were in disarray, no question about it. Saddam Hussein took advantage of that and pulled a surprise attack on them. He regretted that. He regretted it shortly thereafter because the Iranians got themselves together. They put forces in the field, and they pushed the Iranian or the Iraqi army back and would have gone to Baghdad probably, but we helped Iraq. We weighed in and helped Iraq, and we sort of stabilized the front lines. At the same time, think about what we did in Operation Earnest Will and Operation, let's see, the other one, I forget the name of it now, but it followed Earnest Will. We actually reflagged Kuwaiti tankers and escorted them out of the Persian Gulf. We took some damage to our warships in doing that. We hit a mine that the Iranians had planted, almost lost the ship. We also attacked 2 of their destroyers. We sank one, and we were going to sink the second one. Praying Mantis was the name of the exercise or the operation. And Ronald Reagan called us off. So that was when Iran was very weak in terms of conventional warfare vis-a-vis the United States. And when, incidentally, we were very strong. We aren't that strong today. Iran is a lot stronger. So you're looking at the possibility of some real combat and some real ships getting sunk and planes getting shot out of the air and all manner of things happening, including these people over there that are on these bases that don't have any defenses getting killed. I mean, this is just the recipe for what I was saying. Then what do? Well, we've taken some hits from Iran. Now we really are angry. Now the American people are angry too, and the polls are going the other way. Now we're in for a penny, in for a pound. We're going to invade. I mean, we're talking about a real war.
Hey,
Peter, no, please.
Go ahead. I'm going to switch upon you real quick. There may be some of your audience that disagree with me on this, but I don't care. This is not about domestic policy anymore. This is about the world and international policy. This is the one thing that could bring Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, progressives together. This is one time that I'm in the camp of Tucker Carlson. I can't stand Bannon, but I'm in the camp of Bannon. And this is where we all should come together as United States of American citizens and put our outrage right now. We should also be on the calls because we saw this happen in Iraq. And as Larry just mentioned, this can be worse. They talk about a cakewalk in Iraq. 4,500 military members died and millions of Iraqis died. Now, we've really started something with Iran, as I'll say again, who have ballistic missiles that are very powerful. They have a network that they can let loose. And oh, by the way, the thing we haven't talked about yet, we are not immune here at home, because I feel confident. I don't know, but I feel confident they have terrorist cells here and they have a right. So
sure.
We, United States of America, if we don't like this, we better start letting our leadership know we don't like it, because we're complicit, because our government is representing us right now. So we need to let our words and mouths be known that we don't condone this. And that includes Republicans, Democrats, independents, and everybody.
The first response, if Iran really wants to bring this country to its knees, is simply this. Approximately 20% of the world's oil supply and seaborne natural gas shipments passes through the Strait of Hormuz daily. That is around 18 million barrels. Iran has the power to shut off that strait like that. Close it. Now, it will obviously probably spark a global recession if they do it. But if they did do it, I mean, the price of gasoline in this country will go probably to $7 a gallon within a day. Like
we would go immediately to try and open it. That's what I'm talking about. All of these things lead to a wider, deeper, more profound war. We would put the Fifth Fleet in there and we would try to reopen the strait. That's exactly what we did when we reflagged Kuwaiti tankers and we conducted Operation Praying Mantis. But Iran was much less capable then, and we were far more capable. We are less capable now, and Iran is far more capable. So we're talking about a real slugging match. And by the way, when we ran the simulation in 2009 in Beijing, we did this. We took the strait and closed it. Oil went to $300 a barrel overnight. Shippers wouldn't ship and insurers wouldn't insure. So you're talking about what you just said times 10. You're talking about an economic crisis that Putin will love, because he'll be selling oil at $300 a barrel.
Yeah, let me tell you, blowing up that Nord Stream pipeline, that was a thing of genius by the Biden administration. Let me tell you.
Yeah. When Larry mentioned about the carriers they put in there, once again, closer to Iran, we haven't talked about the rockets they have. We've been talking about missiles. We haven't talked about the UAVs they have. We've been talking about missiles, the rockets they have. I mentioned about the Iraq war, 4,500 throughout that war. I want you to know how many people are on those carriers. If one of those carriers went down, you're talking about in the thousands at one shot.
5,000. Counting the air wing.
I thought it was 4,000. So anyway, 4 to 5,000.
Counting the air wing, 5,000. Yeah. And here's another thing that most Americans don't understand. A Navy admiral wrote an article about this in Proceedings a year or so ago. There are not enough escort ships to pick up the survivors if any of them are in the water.
I mean, you really have to ask yourself, is anybody in Trump's ear right now that is telling him that you have reached the point of no return? That
they're all telling him the opposite. They're telling him, go, 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 go. That's my judgment.
Yeah, as far as we know, there are 40,000 U.S. troops on the ground in Iran. There's at least 90,000 in the Middle East that we know of. Lord knows, especially at the level of the level of secrecy that you were privy to. There are, I don't know, probably 1,000 bases around the world, but there's probably hundreds we don't know about, certain places in the Greek islands and, just different spots that people are just not aware of. But all of these places are now targets, all of them. And, I feel terrible for anybody who is serving right now that is over there, that it's not even reconnaissance. It's just, we're standing a post at some, makeshift embassy or whatever. Well, now you could definitely be targeted for assassination. Like there will be a response to this. What that's going to look like, obviously, we're going to have to wait and see. But Trump is acting like a freaking madman right now. And the reason he's doing it is because our country has married itself to this genocidal Zionist state that has to fall. It must fall. And if there is going to be retaliation, And perhaps this argument for retaliation is because of the fact that we are beating the living crap out of Israel right now. Well, now we have to end Israel, or it's going to end us, because they will drag us straight to hell with them. And at some point, there has to be sort of this cutting of the cord. It just has to be. It's either them or us, or maybe it's both of us.
You know, the crunch there, though, could come. I go back to 1973, and the BBC reporter that called Golda Meir knew her really well, usually sent her roses and that sort of thing. So he was always the first BBC reporter she would talk to. And you know what was happening in 73. And he asked her in the course of the conversation, was there any truth to the Samson option? Was it the case that if Israel were in existential straits, it would use a nuclear weapon? And she didn't pause at all. She said, of course.
Yeah.
And here's the thing on that surprised me. I don't know how true it is. As part of that, there are a couple of U.S. cities that are on that list as part of the Samson option, believe it or not.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, this is a very, very dangerous situation for many reasons. I don't believe, I mean, I've been very adamant about this. I think that this just comes down to, it doesn't matter who's in charge. You know, if Kamala was president right now, you're talking about the ultimate yes person who would just do what they're told. They're along for the ride. We saw what happened when Biden was in there. Trump is obviously a little bit of a different animal because he really does believe that he is the commander in chief, that the buck stops with him, and that he calls all the shots. I mean, maybe he calls some, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. All I know right now is that there is no soft landing here. This was an attack that didn't have to happen. This so-called, we're going to give a 2-week grace period, and it's only been, 3 or 4 days, and then decides to just do this. And then he comes out with, and now is the time for peace. Now is the time for peace. The time for peace was well before Israel attacked Iran. Do you gentlemen, I know we've obviously been chatting for a while, and it's tremendously appreciated that you're here this evening, but do you see any circumstance where there could potentially be some type of a mutiny if they try to send these troops into harm's way and they don't want to be a part of this? Is there any possibility that there could be some type of a mutiny amongst the armed forces?
I think the all-volunteer force is relatively immune to that. If it were a conscripted force, I might give you a different answer, but I think he can count on the all-volunteer force to do whatever it is he orders them to do until they fall apart. I mean, we saw that with Iraq. We didn't break the force in Iraq necessarily. We did a lot of people, gave them PTSD and other traumatic brain injury and suicidal tendencies and such, but we did break the families. That was the key. I mean, we broke a lot of families with the all-volunteer force in Iraq and Afghanistan too. But I mean, they're not very big. See, that's the other thing here. We think we have this huge ground force that we could put into harm's way at the drop of a pin. We do not. Our ground force is absolutely tiny compared to what it was in previous years. I mean, just even at the end of the Cold War, we had more troops. We don't have a big force now. Throw the Marine Corps in there, throw the Army in there. You're not talking about a big force. And oh, by the way, the United States Army Reserve was 40% short on recruiting last year. And before that, it was 35% short. It's a hollow force. Now, you want to wake up to some realities really swiftly. Go ahead and start a war with Iran.
This is not going to end well. And Colin, if you could please grab the official message from the supposed leader of the Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries. If you can grab that one, this is going to tell you in a lot of ways why we are where we are now. There is no resistance to Trump because this is all, everyone is aligned here. And I mean everybody. From Hakeem Jeffries, Iran is a sworn enemy of the United States. News to me. And can never be permitted to become a nuclear-capable power. Israel has a right to defend itself against escalating Iranian aggression, and our commitment to Israel's security remains ironclad. The authority to declare war belongs solely to the U.S. Congress. President Trump and his administration must refrain from engaging in offensive military action in Iran without the explicit approval of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Aggressive diplomacy resulting in a longer and stronger agreement that permanently halts Iran's nuclear aspirations is the most appropriate course of action. Meanwhile, I have no doubt that they are going to come out and, on the one hand, say that Trump was wrong for doing this, but we have to stop Iran because, they're so evil. What do they want to do? Hold a vote so that they can say, yes, we'll go to war now, and we're the ones responsible for it? The Democratic Party should seriously seep into the dustbin of history, because that's where they're going. I mean, that is essentially where things are heading. And I will tell you, I like Zoran Mamdani. I think he's got a decent chance of winning. But if Andrew Cuomo becomes the mayor of New York City with the help of another Zionist kingmaker like Michael Bloomberg and everybody else that's involved in trying to ensure that that Zionist power vacuum in New York stays in power, I mean, people cannot run away from the Democratic Party fast enough. They had an opportunity to at least mount some type of an opposition to some of this saber rattling. They have not only not been opposing it, they have not only gone along with it, they have been saber rattling Trump to do it.
Hey, Peter, let me just say something I've been wanting to get off my chest, and you just gave me the opportunity just now. And I don't care if my family, friends, or associates, I want them to hear this. I despise Hakeem Jeffries. I despise Cory Booker. They mean nothing to me because they are bought and paid for by the AIPAC lobby. They are bought and paid for. Look at AIPAC. Hakeem Jeffries get more money than anybody. That is the only reason he is the leader in the Democratic House. He means nothing to me. He's a piece of nothing because he's bought and paid for. He's just playing games. Oh, come to authority. He could have been speaking out to keep us from doing this as leader of the Democratic Party. He's a bought and paid for agent of Israel. Take that to the bank.
Worst kind. And they all are. And Colonel,
all of them are.
Yeah. And you have probably, in the time that you were there, I mean, I assume that the power of the Israel lobby has grown exponentially over time. But I would imagine that back during the Bush administration, that this was already a serious problem. That the amount of power and control that AIPAC and DMFI and all of these nonprofit organizations that are just different elements of, whether it's the Center for American Progress, the Cato Institute, the Heritage Foundation, they're all the same. These are corporate special interest proxies for the big wigs to do what they want to do. But I would imagine that it's reached a point now where they are not going to be able to sweep this under the rug anymore. The American people are just too aware of, first, how precarious our situation is now, but that the point of no return has been reached with the U.S.-Israel relationship, that it is now time, if there ever was a time to sever this relationship, this is it. This is the time to speak up and say, we are not going to World War III for the state of Israel. We will no longer be adhering to their will on our nation. I think that is a great place to wind down the conversation this evening. And I'm wondering if you think we've reached that point where maybe things might actually start to turn.
Hey, Larry, let me just say this first and then let you end it, Larry. Yeah. I said something earlier. This is not a time about domestic politics. I never thought I would be aligning myself with Tucker Carlson. I never thought I would be in agreement with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I never thought I would be agreeing with Steve Bannon. But this is about our country and the world now. This is not about domestic politics now. And I think we all should come together, all Republicans and Democrats. those that know this is wrong, know this is against this war, and be loud and vocal. Because as you said, it could lead to a draft. Just let some of them folks get hit, the 40 or 50,000 we have right now in close proximity to Iran. Let one of those carriers get hit. That's going to expand the war even further. And it will possibly lead to a draft. So if you don't want your son or daughter going to war used as pawns in a corrupt foreign policy, now is the time to get loud and vocal and do something about it. Republicans, Democrats, progressive, conservatives, and independents. If not, you need to shut up. You're complicit. And don't cry when we get here at the homeland by a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I agree. And I would add only one thing, and that is that we are in a situation that could very well spiral completely out of control.
Yep.
And bring a regional war that turns into a global war. Think Ukraine, think the Baltic, other things that are happening right now. And the most dangerous state in Southwest Asia with regard to nuclear weapons is not Iran. It's Israel. The only state that does not have non-proliferation treaty status, won't have it, is not a signatory to the Safeguards Agreement or the additional protocol, won't even let anybody come look at their weapons. This is the most dangerous state in the lot.
A fact.
Indeed. Well, I wish we could have spoken under different circumstances, but of course, boy, oh boy, I bet you, both of you gentlemen, never thought you would live to see anything like this happen again. But hey, it is what it is. American empire is in a very precarious spot. They may have bit, I believe Israel bit off more than they can chew. And it certainly looks like we're doing the same. If there were grounds to remove a commander-in-chief, this would be it. But of course, they're going to go right along with it. That's what's going to happen because we're a bought and paid for country by special interests. The only thing we've got to save ourselves is each other. We have a nation of 350 million people, the overwhelming majority who do not agree with any of this at all. And so we must coalesce as best we can in order to ensure that we do not end up, forget a regional war, more like a world war at this point, because that's what we're staring down the barrel of right now. As much as that is hopefully potentially avoided, I'm not going to hold my breath, but we will work as hard as we can to make that so. Colonel Wilkerson, Chief Fritz, we cannot thank you gentlemen enough for coming on the live stream this evening. It is with great gratitude that you're here. Obviously, our channel has grown exponentially over time, so this makes it even better when thousands of people are now going to hear your message. Let's hope, against all hope, that somehow cooler heads will prevail before this gets any worse out of hand. The links will be in the description, guys. Gentlemen, have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. Thank you, guys. What a fucking nightmare. Absolutely unbelievable that he would do this, but I can't say that I'm surprised. This is where we are, guys. This is what's happened. So it looks like war is imminent, or it's already officially underway. If you are here, remember, guys, we are a small but mighty and growing channel. We've hit about 580 live stream viewers tonight. We're at just over 500 at the moment. Make sure you go over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. This is actually, since all of you that are here, this is going to be the first time that, or the last time I should say, that we will appear as Generational Change. On Monday night, Jen will be returning and we will be making a transition to a new branding. And it does appear, based on the numbers, that Saturday nights are going to be here to stay. We definitely have a huge influx of viewership on this night compared to Mondays and Thursdays. We'll see how that's going to evolve over time. I'm not sure if we're definitely going to go with 3 nights a week, definitely Saturday. And then the question remains, are we going to stick with Monday and or Thursday? We'll see how it works out. And of course, we always welcome suggestions from the audience in terms of what is going to be the best option for us. S. Jera, thank you so much for the 99 cents. We always appreciate you checking in. Chip, thank you so much for the $2. Basic law, Jews have rights, Arabs don't. That is exactly what the law of the land is currently in the state of Israel. Trump is Nero. You know what? It's kind of looking that way right now. Not looking too promising. Liza Land, thank you so much for the $6.99 Canadian A. Hey guys, Trump just posted on Truth Social that he bombed Iran. Yes, he certainly did. And it is a terrible tragedy that he did, because this is not going to be something he's just going to be able to unwind. Chip, thank you again for the $5. Trump just ended life as we know it. 1929 will look like a picnic. Well, like I said, there's going to be a lot of different options that are potentially going to be employed as it relates to the current state with our country. And what is going to happen? I don't know. And I think a great deal of concern now befalls upon us. You know, what are we to expect? What is going to come of what just happened? I don't know. Progressive Lefty with the $6.99 Canadian A, thank you very much. Am I seeing this right? You jumped up to over 40 members. Great job. I think you mean 40,000. Yes, we are at 40,000. In fact, right now, I think we are about to pass 41,000 subscribers. Yeah, it's with great gratification that our channel has grown. And for those of you who are obviously here this evening, you know, we're obviously extremely grateful for the tremendous amount of support that we have gotten. A lot has changed, and for the better. Teresa, Mark, Jay with the $2. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your continued support of our channel. You know, it's always great to see the OGs that are with us, that are contributing, that understand the grind that we have gone through to get to this point. And of course, one of our super favorites, Teresa, thank you so much for the $10. Again, every dollar counts. Every amount that you contribute to our channel helps us get to the next rung on the ladder. Our goal is to deliver the truth, point blank, period. No questions asked. That's what we're here to do. And that's why you guys come to our channel, regardless if it's a dire circumstance, which of course is what we're sitting in right now, or you are just here to support a channel that is going to keep it 100% honest. Who could have imagined going live this evening that we would run into something like this? I just am kind of at a loss for words. It really sucks that this has happened, but it should not come as any surprise. The question now becomes, how is the American people going to respond to this? Because I got to tell you guys, I don't see a situation where there is going to be a tremendous amount of flag waving. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. And Josie, thank you so much. Another one of our OGs. Thank you so much for the $10. It really makes a huge difference. Any amount of support is going to allow us to continue to grow. And so we look forward to that. And with that said, I don't know what's going to happen as far as how the government is going to respond. But what I do know is that I think the American people can find unification on this issue, because I don't think anybody wants this. I mean, I am pretty confident in saying that the American people do not want World War III. I don't think that's a stretch. I think that's pretty definitive. And so what happens next is going to be the key. What is the next course of action? What are we staring down the barrel of, guys? That's going to be the question. Do we get 1 million people in the streets in our nation's capital saying no war with Iran? Enough with this? Is there anybody who will bring legitimate articles of impeachment against the president for, I don't know, starting a world war? But let's focus on him having conversations with Russia because it was about Ukraine. I do not have any faith at all in our bought and paid for by corporate special interest government. And neither should anybody else. I don't believe that I am going to, I'm not breaking any news here at all, that we should not be in a situation where we're wondering what's going to happen tomorrow. And just as Chief Fritz and Colonel Wilkerson pointed out, you have to believe there is definitely a plethora of terror cells that are all over this country. And who's to say that there aren't domestic attacks that could be happening at any moment. That should be of what is incredible concern for everybody right now. What could potentially happen? And who knows how far the powers that be are willing to take this. Yeah, but Donna, Representative Green wasn't bringing in articles of impeachment because he was actually trying to do us any favors. He wasn't doing it from the standpoint that he was actually concerned about actually addressing a key, crucial issue that Trump was doing that would require impeachment proceedings to take place. This is a very, if there ever was grounds for impeaching a commander-in-chief, this would be it. He superseded the legislative branch when it came to war. He has effectively declared war on Iran, and now we're looking at world war potentially. So as a result, you have the legal grounds for him to be removed. Now, apparently, there is a new Truth Social that was just brought to our attention by our trusty behind-the-scenes champ, Colin Tulsi, but also Wasim Garani with the 279 Canadian A. Trump's Truth Social just came offline. That's very interesting. Let's see what he had to say. I will be giving an address to the nation at 10 p.m. Eastern Time at the White House regarding our very successful military operation in Iran. This is an historic moment for the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Iran must now agree to end this war. Thank you. Yeah, he's living in an alternate universe. He's living in an alternate universe. You just attacked them, and now you're saying, oh, they better listen or we're going to have people. He's out of his mind. And the people around him are just as guilty, if not more guilty, because they know better. This is not going to end well. I mean, I would say that about a lot of people, to be honest. You know what this reads like? It almost reads like something that Netanyahu told him to say. We just killed a bunch of Palestinian kids today. I wonder if they learned their lesson, because that's what it sounds like. We are living through idiocracy. On a bright note, we just passed 41,000 subscribers. Whoop-de-doo. And in the grand scheme of things, who cares? Oh, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I knew you'd be here. You must support war with Iran or else you're an anti-Semite. Hey, call me whatever you want. But I can see the inner self of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's what she really looks like. Whew. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're just some troll supporter of our channel, but whatever it is, I give you credit. I like you showing your true colors. You really need to do that. I want to play one more clip. I'm going to play a clip from Kim Iverson, friend of the show. Does a great show. And this, I think, is going to explain the sort of modus operandi regarding the whole concept of attack, deflect, and blame. And perhaps this was all in motion to begin with. So Kim Iverson, who does amazing work, here's what she had to say about this.
You can't bomb Iran one day, then complain about illegal immigration the next. You can't send weapons to Israel or start World War III and then act confused when our borders are overwhelmed and our communities are stretched thin. Donald Trump campaigned in 2016 on ending endless wars. He was right. But now he's backing Israel to the hilt, surrounding himself with war hawks, talking about strikes on Iran, and refusing to stand against the people pushing us into another regional disaster. That's not America first. That's neocons first. That's Israel first. And if we go down this path again, it's not going to make America great. It's going to break us.
And that is exactly where we are now, we are at the point where we're going to break. So either we unite, if you will, as the United States of America, or we are in deep shit. We all have Israel fatigue. We have Zionist fatigue. And they are driving our domestic and foreign policy, which has led to the attack on Iran this evening. Donald Trump did not wake up one day and decide we totally have to go to war with Iran. No. His financial backers, led by the Israel lobby, Miriam Adelson and the like, said, we have to go after Iran because Iran is coming after us. You know, the war that we started that we thought we had under control, now we don't have it under control. So now you have to go in there and take care of business for us. We'll continue.
So let's look at the facts, not the spins, not the slogans. Let's look at the actual history of what happens when America gets involved in another Middle Eastern war. The Iraq War from 2003 to well, actually, let's back up. Let's go ahead and back up a little bit further back from there. Let's go ahead and look at the when we toppled Iran the first time around. What happened there? Over 50,000 Iranians fled to the U.S. after the fall of the Shah in 1979. Today, over 500,000 Iranians have resettled into the United States, many from that wave and from subsequent waves. And after the recent Israeli strikes on Tehran, over 100,000 Iranians have already fled major cities just within the last few days. So if war breaks out, conservative estimates are that about 2 to 5 million Iranians could be displaced in the first year alone. And where do you think they're going to go? Where are they going to go? Their families. We have 500,000 Iranians already in the United States. So they have family members. They're going to reunite. They're going to bring their families into the United States. You don't want all those refugees. You don't want all those migrants. How about you stop cheering for war? The Iraq War, from 2003 to 2011, there were over 4 million Iraqis who were displaced. 2 million fled abroad. 130,000 of those were resettled in the United States between 2007 and 2014. So a lot of those Iraqis went into Europe. And a lot of you talk about, oh, look at Europe. We don't want to become the next Europe. Look at what's happening to them. The UK is not even recognizable anymore. I'm hearing this all the time. Europe isn't recognizable. It's no longer Europe because of all these migrants that have flooded in. Well, that is because our Iraq war, which Europe supported, which they probably shouldn't have in hindsight, it's their own fault. They shouldn't be supporting our wars. But then again, we've got all of our bases in their territories. We've got NATO. They don't really have a choice. America could just wage war with Europeans at any time, and we're already on their soil. So they have to pretty much do whatever we say. The Afghanistan war from 2001 to 2021, the 20-year war, 6.4 million Afghanis were displaced or fled the country, and 86,000 Afghan refugees were brought to the U.S. post-withdrawal. That was just post-withdrawal. That's not even talking about how many came to the United States of that 6.4 million who were displaced. A lot of them went into Europe. Europe is always bearing the brunt of it the most, but a lot of them came to the United States. Top countries receiving the Afghan refugees were also Iran. So where do you think those Afghan refugees are going to go? They're going to come to the United States, Pakistan, Germany, the United States. These are the main countries that absorbed those Afghanistan war refugees. Syrian war, the Syrian civil war, 13.5 million Syrians were displaced in total. So
I bet you guys didn't know that one. 13.5 million Syrians were displaced because we just had to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. And I'm not here to tell you that Bashar al-Assad was a good guy. But the problem is that al-Assad was more content to do business with his region and Russia and China and not do business with us. And we can't have that. This is crumbling empire in a big way. And you can imagine, with all of the refugees that are being displaced all over the place, this is a direct result of our actions. So when people complain about why do we have a migrant crisis, well, this is a huge part of it. American empire all over the world creates the displacement of tens of millions of people. That's the way it is. So now, if we decide, God forbid, that we somehow are going to get ourselves involved in a world war starting with Iran, oh boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Anybody who supports stricter border policies, and I do, I am not an open border guy at all. I think people should come here legally. I think we should have a good immigration policy, but it is pretty obvious why it's bad. Corporate special interests want to pay bottom dollar as low as they can to the most desperate people so that they can be rich. That's the biggest reason. But when it's war, famine, upheaval, all of it, what's going to stop it? And they're in a desperate situation, and they will seek refuge wherever they can find it. So Kim's right on the money here.
6.8 million fled abroad, nearly 1/3 of the entire country left. That is likely what would happen to Iran, quite honestly. 1.3 million migrants entered Europe alone in 2015. 1 year, 1.3 million. How does any area of the world absorb that? Turkey has had to absorb loads of refugees. I'm surprised Turkey is still an ally to the United States, part of NATO, when they're absorbing the most refugees out of all of our Middle Eastern attacks. But Europe is getting the next brunt of it. And then, of course, they all come filing into the United States. And Europe could start demanding it, saying you have to take these refugees because you're the one who starts all these wars.
Yeah, but are we going to listen? That's the question. I'm telling you, guys, it's like we're morphing into Israel with our actions. It's like we really are a rogue state of the worst kind. And I will say, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but did you know that there was the nuclear doomsday plane that arrived in Washington, D.C.? Credit to our friends from Eisenhower Media, who are the ones who introduced us to Colonel Wilkerson and Chief Fritz. I mean, this is serious shit, guys. So kudos to Kim. She does an amazing job. She is a huge supporter of Jen's. She has time and time again said that the worst congressional representative, bar none, is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We would agree. For those of you who are arriving late, we are almost at the 2-hour mark. We hope that you will subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure that you share the stream. Again, our intention has been to transform politics into service. The only possible silver lining, if you can call it that may be happening right now as a result of these actions is that maybe, just maybe, the outright genocidal attacks on the Palestinian people are going to ease up to some degree, because the IDF, they're going to have their hands full in a big way. Oh boy, they thought they were having death from above come to them before. It's a whole new ball game now. They are going to feel it like nobody's business. And again, thank you all that have been here this evening. And remember, you could go to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We appreciate you all being here. Progressive Lefty, thank you so much for the $6.99 Canadian A. I always said the world would end if I got back with my ex. I guess this is all my fault. Well, I think we've all done a lot of bad things in our lives, so we don't have to completely take credit for all of it, but we appreciate your apology. Chip, thank you for the $3 super sticker. And Black Tie, thank you so much for the 10 pounds. And as we have noticed, one of the things that has become a trend with our growing channel is that we are getting a lot of international supporters to tune in from all over the globe. And so we are very appreciative for each and every one of you that are here this evening. And I'm going to play one last clip before we end this evening. I want to play this clip. For those of you who don't know who Emily Austin is, she is a very popular, shall I even say celebrity, on social media. I met her in Philadelphia a couple of years ago, and not like, oh, hi, so-and-so. No, I met her at RFK's presidential launch right after October 7th, 2023. Little did I know who I was talking to. But this is a person that constantly goes on with Piers Morgan and has a lot to say about why what's going on with Israel is a good thing that they're doing. But thankfully, she was on there also with Scott Horton and Aaron Mate, and they weren't pulling any punches about what's going on right now with what Israel is doing, and by extension, how they're dragging us in to this unprecedented moment that we're in right now.
Trust the Iranian regime as far as he could throw them when it comes to potentially creating a bomb.
It doesn't come down to trust at all, and I beg the rest of the panel's forgiveness. I'll try to stay quiet later on in the hour here and let y'all talk. But just real quick so you understand, we had a deal in 2015 under which Iran exported every bit of their enriched uranium stockpile to France, who would then turn it into fuel rods and then ship it back to Iran to use in their reactor. Now, the nuclear reactor produces plutonium waste, but they don't have the facility required to reprocess plutonium to get all the impurities out to make weapons fuel. So they had no plutonium route to the bomb. The Russians would come and get the plutonium out of their reactor when it was full and time every couple of years or whatever. Now, their uranium route to the bomb, because they were exporting every bit of their enriched uranium out of the country, was they have this arbitrary timeline breakout period. They call it the breakout point, that it would take them 1 year if they decided to withdraw from the treaty, kick the inspectors out of the country, and begin to enrich weapons-grade uranium. It would take them a year to have enough to make one bomb with. Now, the new report that came out said that on top of that, it would take them another couple of years to have an actual warhead ready to do anything with it. And I'm sorry this is complicated, but I know people can follow on this if you know anything about the history here. Let me explain real quick now that the Nagasaki bomb was a implosion bomb, a plutonium implosion bomb. Which is the type of bomb that can be miniaturized and fit to a missile. But the Hiroshima bomb was a simple gun-type nuke, a uranium nuke, which is a humongous thing. Iran could never fit that on a missile or deliver it to Israel or the United States in a million years. And so if they had a single gun-type nuke or two, it would essentially be to test off a demonstration round in the desert to show that they have one, but it still would not make them an offensive threat to anyone.
And that is a very key point. Now, one thing that I have seen in the chat is that evidently this is what's being suggested, that the reason why Trump attacked Iran and authorized the attack on Iran is Iran was testing nuclear weapons, or that there was a nuclear test last night. Even if that were the case, you can't police the world. I know they think that they can police the world, but American empire, it's not in its death throes yet, but let me tell you, we as a country are going to reject Israel once and for all. That's coming. And Arashnu is right. This is Zion Gate. That's what this is. Will we have the wherewithal? Israel has 90 nukes that we know of, Tyler, that we know of. The largest nuclear arsenal in the world. If you all would care to guess who has the number one arsenal, it's not us. It's actually Russia. And Russia has made it very clear that they back Iran. Is it really a stretch to suggest that Putin wouldn't give some nukes to Iran? Who's to say he hasn't done it already? The level of lunacy is, well, unfortunately, people like Wasserman Schultz, they do want war. Some people really don't care if others live or die. It's a dangerous time. But Scott Horton's got more to say.
And as the CIA concluded in 2007, they abandoned all research into a weapons program, even bothering to look into it in 2003 when America got rid of Saddam Hussein for them. And so The fact that they've had now, I'm sorry, get to your point. Donald Trump left the treaty or the agreement in 2018. Now, Piers, it's complicated, but according to the agreement, Iran is allowed to stop abiding by some of the restrictions in it if America breaks our side of the deal. They actually are still within the larger agreement, even while ceasing to abide by some parts of it. Now, that 60% enriched uranium stockpile that they built up is clearly, just as it was in the Obama years, is clearly simply a card to play in negotiations to deal away. That uranium is there to give up if they can get America to back down and lift the sanctions. That's all it is. If they wanted to make weapons-grade uranium, they could have made weapons-grade uranium. They weren't doing that. They're getting closer because it's a card to play in negotiations. And now and one last point, and then I swear I'll stop, and you made this point. Nothing changed. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, says nothing changed. They did not break out toward a nuclear weapon. There was no casus belli here, even if you accepted the premise that you could launch a preemptive war to prevent them from getting a nuke, which is a whole other argument. But even if you accept that premise, nothing had changed in Iran other than the timeline, the arbitrary timeline of Trump's demand had expired, and you hear Trump and the rest of the hawks trying to conflate having a nuclear program at all with being on the verge of achieving a nuclear weapons capability. And this is what George W. Bush called shorthanding it. In other words, they just imply a bunch of lies because they can't explain what they mean.
And that is a great point again. Now, the reason I bring up Emily Austin, who is in the middle, this is a person who goes on the largest of large networks and sells Israel's genocide as well as the war in Iran. Now, we all know Aaron Mate does an amazing job. He does his regular show with Katie Halper as well as Max Blumenthal, and they have done a great job. And credit to them because they're all Jewish as well, and they are adamant against the Zionist movement as well as the state of Israel. And so credit where credit is due. The problem is the Zionist movement and the movement towards Greater Israel, of which Emily Austin supports, there is a lot of financial backing, substantial financial backing to that end. But as we've said, have we reached the point of no return? Well, the Donald definitely made a point this evening to take us to that point of no return. And now we're past it. So how's it going to unfold? I don't know. I was certainly hoping that we wouldn't be concluding the generational change era on our channel on such a dire note. But that is where we are. Come Monday, we will be a different show, a different name and a different brand. Be on the lookout. It's going to be fun. But the good news is Jen will be back. What a time for her to come back. Lord knows we've needed her. And with that said, Jen is going to be walking into a completely different channel in more ways than one. When Jen left, our subscriber count was around, I think when Jen left, we were at about 27,000, give or take. Jen comes back, we're at over 41,000. So you can imagine it's, as I've said before, extremely gratifying to have you all with us, to be here as part of this incredible growth that we have gone through. As I've said, I don't really have a moment to really enjoy it because how can you? You know, we're trying to do our part here to bring attention to this absolutely nightmare scenario that we're now staring down the barrel of, which is World War III. Because that is ostensibly what Trump may have started. I don't believe cooler heads are going to prevail here. I do believe that Trump's decision is monumental in the worst way. And there will be repercussions for his actions. And the absolute lunacy and absent-mindedness in his response and how he's going to make a statement in an hour on national television about what he did. I can only hope that there is some semblance of sanity amongst this nation that is looking at the president and saying, this is not only not the way, but we will turn against you as a result. This comes down to, can we break the state of Israel? I hope we can. Now, right now on Monday, we are scheduled to speak with Professor Norman Finkelstein. We haven't gotten final confirmation. We're crossing our fingers. Matt Madigan has it right. Yeah, he's definitely, I'm totally getting a Nobel Peace Prize now. That's what we're hoping for, Josie. That's what we're fighting for. Thank you, David. The new name will be Revolutionary Change. And what a time for it to happen, because Lord knows we need it. If we're going to have revolutionary change, it's got to happen right now. That's all there is to it. Smash that like button, share, subscribe. That's what we're hoping for. And do all the wonderful things that we've asked you to do over the course of 4 years and I guess when we're in June, about 8 months, 4 years and 8 months that our podcast has been around. 4 years and 8 months that our channel has been around. We know who our regulars are. We know the people that have been with us from the very beginning. Brett Boyle's been with us for a long time. So is Donald James, Manwith, and our new people. Siamari Sampi, Matt Madigan, Noah Linden, Tyler Durden. Chip has been with us for a long time. Sarah R.'s been with us. Esrog Bailey is new. Debbie is Debbie. Josie Justice has not been with us the whole time, but she's been with us for a while now. She's awesome. Ali Fakhreddine is new. Clever Trevor, new. Northern Hillbilly, been with us for a little while. Just me, for a little while. Evil Tricky Spider, new. Somebody from, appears to be China. Harashnu's been with us for a little while. Black Tie is new. Zainab has been with us for a while. Let's see. Nancy McMonarch, I believe, is new. Who else? Flaudanative, new. J.D. Salt, new. Talk Cryptography, new. Anonymous Nope, new. Jules Roger, new. Jamal Johnson, new. Dondre Lemire, new. TPS Reports, you've been here for a little while. Great to see you. Reb Hubs, I believe you are new. Really? With a question mark. That's new. Donna Vorsi, she's new. Who else? Jimmy Zimzam. Jimmy's been with us for a while. Always great to have him here. Lunatic for Biscas. I believe you're new. Thomas Slater, new. The Progressive Lefty, amazing supporter. Been with us for a while. H. I don't know if I can get through everybody. Daniel Wysocki, thank you so much. Teresa, one of our best, and she's been with us for a long time. JD Party Hat, he is actually one of our OGs. He's been with us pretty much since our channel had 20 live stream viewers. Our Apex tonight was about 580. So we definitely know now for sure that Saturday night is here to stay. Don't believe me, just watch. God's Chosen, new. Victoria P., who's been with us for a while. Great to see you as always. When our channel was smaller and we only had a couple of hundred comments, I would go through the entire list. I would basically try to say hello to everybody and let everybody know that we appreciate you being here. I know I've rattled off about 50 or so names. And Saturday is officially here to stay because it's obvious that the numbers make sense. So with that said, despite what's happened, and I know a lot of you are very concerned right now, believe that humanity is still possible to be salvaged, even if it seems dire in this moment. The key is going to be the response. What is Iran going to do? What is Russia going to do? What is China going to do? I don't know. What I do know is that if we stay on this path, Israel is going to drag us straight to hell with them, because Israel's going down. They are going down, and we must sever our ties. And if we don't, then the American empire will crumble. As much as people think it can't happen, it certainly can. And Scooby-Doo's is right. Serious consequences are coming. So hold on tight. And thank you all for this amazing journey of generational change. We'll see you on Monday for revolutionary change. Free Palestine.